Hello, welcome back to the Hydrogen Hub. My name is Laurent Resekis, Executive Director with S&P Global, and I'm delighted to be chairing this panel on offtake for hydrogen projects. I think hydrogen, something that we all will have noticed, is that hydrogen has been discussed a lot, not just in the Hydrogen Hub, but in the main conference, in panels that have nothing to do with hydrogen, not hydrogen the name. It's obvious that the big players, both in finance and the big energy majors, formerly oil and gas majors, are incorporating hydrogen into their strategies. So hydrogen is here to stay. At the same time, now that it's advancing, you're also hearing a bit more about some of the challenges, whether it's in the US, whether it's in Europe. One of the challenges is on the supply side and the hourly matching, which we won't be getting into here today, but we'll be talking about offtake, which is obviously tricky into a market that doesn't yet exist. People talk about, I've heard a few times people comparing to the LNG market. The way the LNG market was built was buyers and sellers and long-term relationships that allowed financing of liquefaction. But of course, there already was a gas market. So this, of course, there's a hydrogen market, there's an ammonia market, but this is a new product that we're talking about, low-carbon hydrogen. So, Mike, you're at a stage where 8 Rivers, very well-funded company, but now you're moving into a stage where you're developing a very large project at Port Arthur, presumably looking now to finance on a project finance basis, and you need robust offtake arrangements for that. Can you tell us a bit about the project and where the offtake discussions stand?
Yeah, happy to. It starts with, I think, a discussion of 8 Rivers and who we are. So 8 Rivers we're really a diversified net zero energy technology company. We do technology development with designing with CO2 in mind. We are built as a company of people who have been in the energy industry for a long time, and we know how hard it is to commercialize energy technologies. So we've built structurally into our business model project development as well. We know to bring a technology to market, you have to make the projects look appealing to eventually financiers. That if you're going to build infrastructure scale technologies, you're going to need infrastructure scale capital. And so we have a technology inside the company we call 8RH2. It does hydrogen production with 99.9% CO2 capture. We are now building the first project based on that technology, which you mentioned, we call Project Cormorant. We've announced its location in Port Arthur, Texas. And we certainly are working with customers for that offtake. It's going to be an important piece of the overall project de-risking to make sure we can get it built.
Where are those customers?
So there's a variety of different demand sources for hydrogen, but I think it's important to sort of recognize the leadership position in Japan and South Korea have taken in creating that demand pool for product. And so, I think there's a lot of projects are aiming for those markets. Cormorant is among them, but we also talk to other customers about it as well.
Is Europe on the agenda as well?
Europe is on the agenda. We'll see. I think a lot of the demand in Europe is looking at green at the moment. There's a significant price premium for that, but we'll see how it plays out.
In Europe, obviously could be users of hydrogen, but there's also something called H2 Global, which has been set up by Germany. Netherlands has joined. Is that an interesting, because they're going to sign long-term offtake agreements and then provide some subsidies through there potentially and then sell it on a different basis. Is that model attractive?
I think it's an interesting approach, and I'm really interested to see how H2 Global plays out. I kind of view it as a demand aggregation system, and so if you have a lot of small buyers who are willing to, want to source hydrogen to make a big project go, you actually need more than just small offtakes. You have to have volume that's significant relative to the size of the project, and so H2 Global as a concept has been to, I think, aggregate that demand, and so interesting concept. Would love to see them get something done to see how it works.
You mentioned Asia, Japan and Korea, and then you mentioned Europe when I asked about that. You didn't mention the United States. Is that a problem? Do you think that will change?
I think so. We take a little bit different perspective on that. So for us with Project Cormorant, we've built it to make clean ammonia targeted for overseas markets. But again, at our core, we're a technology development company, and our technology, our hydrogen technology, doesn't have to manifest as a pure just with ammonia as the commodity. Our technology can be integrated into existing facilities to decarbonize their hydrogen production that exists today.
Right.
So for me, I think when I think about the U.S., I don't see it as necessarily a blue ammonia market today, but I do see a market for hydrogen technologies that can be decarbonized. The offtake there will work very differently because you're talking about an integrated process into an existing facility. But those kind of structures, I think, are the most appealing. I think that's if we're going to see adoption of a low carbon intensity hydrogen technology, it's going to more manifest as that type of structure as opposed to what we're doing with Cormorant in terms of a large facility requiring large offtake.
Okay, but to kick it off, it's an export project, taking advantage of the upstream credits and selling abroad.
A combination of, you mentioned so many different projects along the Gulf Coast. I think everyone sees the same thing, which is a combination of low gas prices, infrastructure to support CO2 sequestration, the IRA incentive, make it logical as a location, and then there's demand pull overseas.
I mean, is there special risk with ammonia? I mean, obviously ammonia is shipped all over the world, but I'm not a shipping specialist, but it's a volatile product. Is that an issue? Who, if something goes wrong, who's on the hook?
Well, I think you said it in the preface to your question, which is it's already shipped in many places around the globe. It's been a commodity for 100 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so there's known ways to handle it well. I think as you're developing a project, you have to sort of develop it with that safety in mind. It has its own special requirements, but again, it's those paths have been well trodden.
It's interesting though how the discussion is now very focused on ammonia, because if you go back a couple of years, there were still discussions of how will hydrogen be shipped, and now the discussion seems very focused on ammonia. We have a collective opinion? When ammonia gets somewhere, is it going to be cracked back to hydrogen, or is it going to be used as ammonia? I think we know the answer. Japan and Korea is co-firing the actual ammonia with coal, but what about Europe, and how do you envision that? Or maybe you don't care.
The next market for again, a low carbon intensity ammonia, I would look at either as a shipping fuel or into agriculture. I think those are going to be the places you see it. I think those will be second and third markets. We've got to bring the cost curve down, I think, because they're a little bit more price sensitive. But that's where I would say the next place.